Wowzers, only a couple years old and already having problems? Do you no longer have a back power port or data connection? Guys, I got a couple tricks for this AVS system in order to keep it running much longer. Stay tuned. Alright, what do you know, what do you do, what do you say, my YouTube viewers? Retro Pro Frank with another installment. Today we have the AVS, and I've had this for a couple years now. A few of my friends have bought them as well, and been noticing that they've been having a lot of issues with this port right here. Now obviously this one doesn't have any issues. This is mine. It still works great and I don't have any issues, but my one friend, he asked me to take a look at his because this was punched right through. Now it was punched right through, so there was no way of powering the device, and there was no way of syncing any data, that's for sure. So he asked me, he said, Frank, can you fix it for me? I said, yeah, no problem. But I asked him, I said, have you ever uploaded your scores to Nintendo Age? He said no. So I said, well then, you know what, this isn't really, we don't really have to replace it with the original kind of port. We can put another port here. So that's what we're going to do in this video. I'm going to show you guys how to make this unit last a lot longer by not using this port. We're going to add a different port that's going to only supply power only. So most of the times, if you're not doing a firmware update, or if you're not uploading your high scores to Nintendo Age, you don't even really need that port. That's use the data in that port. But it's a nice, easy, fast fix for this system if that port's ripped out completely and you just want it to play, or if you want to preserve this port and add another secondary power port to power the unit. So there are a couple tools required in order to take this apart and to do the modification to the unit itself. It's pretty simple. Okay, there's some screws on the bottom here, and this top shell comes off. So we'll start with that. But let me show you real quick on this kind of stuff that we're going to need here. We're going to need some side cutters. Okay, we're going to need 30 gauge wire in order to do it the way I'm going to show you guys here. Okay, and I looked it up, 5 volts, 100 milliamps. It said around 28, so 30 gauge will be fine. You're going to need a new power port, and I'll link this in the bottom of the in the description of this video. You need the male and the female side. Here's the female side that's going to be mounted and drilled into here, and then here's the male side that's going to hook up to a different power supply. Now you can use the original power supply here, okay, but I'm not going to use that one. I actually have this kicking around, okay, and it's got a shorter cable here. But if the most important thing, you're like, Frank, which one do I use? Most important is you have to look over here where it says output. You want it to be 5 volts DC, 1000 milliamp. You can probably go 5 volts DC, 1500 and 2000 milliamps. I wouldn't go much higher than that, and you could probably go a little bit lower than this as well. Just the voltage is the most important thing here. Okay, you don't want to put a 12 volt DC power supply because you'll totally fry the system out. Okay, just keep it at 5 volts. So I got this one here. You can see what I'm going to do here. I'm going to strip this guy down. Okay, now you can do it with the original too. If you want, there's 4 wires that can come out of the original here. There's I think there's 5 wires, but only 2 of them get used in order to power it. So you could take the USB cable that they gave you in order to plug in the back of this, cut this end off, not the USB end off, and you're going to find a negative and positive somewhere amongst the grouping of the wire. You'll find a negative and positive, and you can always check that with a multimeter. Okay, so you need that. You're going to need some solder. I just use some cheap 6040 solder from the dollar store. Actually works great, never had a problem with it. Most importantly, when soldering, you're going to need some flux. Okay, this is pretty cheap, it's good to have on hand. I actually stock this stuff too, but I'm going to be using the pen today. This is not required, you can get away with a normal drill bit, but I'm going to use a step set. Okay, so this gradually gets bigger, and it's real easy because you can mark. Like over here, you can see all the size holes. There you go, you can see it right there. It has all the different sizes here. You can get away with a drill bit, but you're going to need something to make a hole big enough to fit this in here. And you're also going to need some sort of a power drill. Oop, just bumped you guys a bit. Some sort of a power drill. Okay. Alright, let me put all this stuff away. We're going to take the lid off this bad boy and we'll take a look at the inside. Okay, let's get started. Let's flip her over. Okay. Going to be 4 screws with a Phillips. Number 2, and I actually already made this video. It's the second time making this video. The first time was on my friends who asked me to take a look at it on how to repair it. But after seeing what I saw after I opened the hood, I figured, you know what, I want mine to last a little bit longer, and I would rather use a different power port than the one that they supplied, and I'll show you guys in a minute what I'm exactly talking about here. Now, once I open this up, it's a bit tricky actually to get the lid off the first time. You gotta kind of pull it off by sliding it forward, then pulling it off. Okay, once everything's out, flip it over. Alright, and see how it's like stuck there? So I seen a guy press that down like that, and then you want to somehow press this forward. This was a pain in the ass to take off, by the way. It's a little tricky, be careful or else you're gonna break it. Now we're inside, we're taking a look at the inside of the AVS here. And this I found to be very strange looking. First off, this guy right here. There's nothing holding this down, that's just in there. They did put holes here on either side, but they didn't drill any holes here to hold it in, but okay. This thing right here is the funniest right here. Take a look at this. What does that look like to you guys? Come on, my PC nerds will know exactly what this looks like. Look at that. Doesn't that look identical to a PCI 1 slot? It's not, believe me, I checked, but I mean, if you look at this motherboard here, this is hilarious. Check this out. Here's a motherboard, and I mean, check out that motherboard. Look at that. So does that mean I can just, cut this over here, drop it in there and run some NES software? That would be pretty cool. Probably would take a lot more than that, but here's a 72 pin connector. I just thought that looked pretty funny. That's actually really funny. So we're going to put this to the side. We want to remove the board. So we're going to remove these 4 screws here to remove the board. Okay. I'm just going to lift the whole board out. It's going to come right out. Okay, now you can see over here. This is normally what ends up breaking off right there. See right here? That's where it breaks. Looks like that complete pad on my friends ripped right off on on either side. And it's pretty funny if you look at the actual, I mean, it's kind of hard for me to hold it still, but if you look at the actual socket, there's not very much solder on there. And another thing I noticed on my friend's system too, when I flipped it over, is the HDMI port actually, there's like a little hole there in this one. Sorry about the shaky camera here, guys, but there's not much solder holding this port on, and there's no through hole on this port as well. So that's why these things are falling off, you know, like see how this has a hole and actually something went through the board. So that's going to hold a lot better, but I am going to pay this attention too. I'm going to apply a little bit extra solder on these pads as well, just because if this thing breaks off, you're really screwed unless you're really good at soldering and you have a very good magnifying glass. Okay, so our connections are very simple. Because I'm keeping this port in here, you know, I'm going to hit it with a little bit of solder on both sides of the original port as well, just to stiffen it up. Same with the HDMI. But because I'm keeping the original port, that means if I ever wanted to do a firmware update or upgrade my update my scores, high scores to Nintendo Age, I can always go through this port, okay? But we're gonna be adding the other port for just using the power supply to plug it in and to unplug it and to use it every day. This way we're not gonna put so much stress on this port. Now, the way we're gonna do it is it's gonna be very simple. It's gonna be two connections, a negative and a positive, okay? So the positive for this chip here, okay, I seen a guy in a YouTube video scratching up this trace over here, and yes, you can get it like that. I don't really recommend that method unless it's kind of last resort. So I actually followed it up to this via port right here underneath this chip, this smaller chip with the 8 legs. So that little via port right there is how I repaired the last one. Is I actually just put the 30 gauge wire right in through the top and soldered the other side of the board. And then for the negative is just right here, the third one in on these nice big pads. It would have been nice to see the guys at AVS there put a pad for positive here just to be safe. Somebody obviously screwed up by not putting any through holes in these. So I see this being an issue almost on every single one. That's why with mine, even though there's nothing wrong with it and it works, I'm still going to take the extra 2 minutes to do this than to make it a lot more difficult to hook this up. But the only thing this thing functions, to be honest, besides power, is to upgrade your high scores. If you're not using it for that, you don't even need this. All you need is power going to the unit. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut a couple wires. We're going to install the positive right there in that via there. And we're going to install the negative on that pad right here. Okay. Now, guys, doing this method, please, if you guys can, you might want to pick one of these up. This is called a fiberglass pen, okay? And the way it works is you twist to one end and fiberglass comes out the other. And you use this on the circuitry in order to get rid of the varnish on the board. Okay, let me give you an example. Let me grab another board. Okay, so here's an old Xbox board, revision 1.0 board that's beyond repair. Okay, now see these traces here? Check this out. I'm just going to brush this over the traces a few times, not too crazy. Okay, now this is going to take all the varnish off the board. You can see it already starting to do that. So look at that. Right down to the bare copper, and you have to be careful. You can't go all the way because you'll get right through it. But I mean, if you're trying to solder to a trace, that might be your best method, is to use what I found anyways, to use a fiberglass pen. Anyway, moving on. Let's get this thing roughed up in the via ports here. Let's run the wires, let's drill the hole, and let's continue. Okay, so the first thing I want to figure out is where I want to put my hole. I'm actually going to do that first before we solder this up. So you're going to need a drill with a small drill bit in order to start off the step bit. Okay, and you don't want to drill the board, so I would probably say, let me see here. Something just like that. Okay, now we're going to use the step, and we're going to make this in larger. Okay, now I don't want to go too close to this, okay, because it looks like it's just that port, but there's actually mounts on this side. So now we need our step bit. Okay, wish me luck, guys. Alright, so there's 5. Nice clean hole. There's 5 notches in the step bit. Let's see if that's big enough. Just want to make sure. But this guy will fit, and the link's in the description. Okay, it's almost there, but it's not quite there yet, so let's do another step. Okay, there's another one. See if we're closer. Wow, that's really close. Let's do one more. Okay, and there we go. That's perfect fit. Okay, so we got the hole drilled. We got that out of the way. That looks very clean. It almost looks factory. Let's continue with the soldering. Hopefully you've turned your soldering iron on. Okay, so I took the liberty of scuffing it up with the fiberglass pen here, applying a little bit of the flux, and just tinning that one pad there. But while we're here, I'm going to flip the board over, and you can see, look at this port. It's a dry solder joint right there. You see that? Where is it? Right there. See it? The hole? And like, that's what I'm talking about, right? The last thing I need is for this HDMI port to come right off. So I already scuffed it up. I'm just gonna hit it with some flux. Okay. And this is just as a precaution. This is something that's gonna, you know, protect your HDMI port from being caved into the console, because that wouldn't be too fun. So we're just gonna add a bit, and hopefully this sticks good. Yep. Okay, and I don't care if there's a little too much. I'd rather have a little too much than what I just seen. Okay, and you can see there's no through hole design on that port, so I'm going to be using that just strictly for data, and I never really use data, so this looks pretty good. But you know what, we can actually throw, not that I'm ever going to use the expansion here, we can actually throw a little bit of solder in these ports as well. Like, I mean, if you use it, it doesn't hurt, right? So this will just hold it a little better, even though this is a through port design. It should just hold it a little bit better. And yeah, it's nothing really. It's not going to hold it to the board, but okay, you can see that how that's going to help. Okay, so that's a big improvement on that HDMI port there. Okay, so let's flip this guy over again. So we tinned this guy. Now all that's left to do is to get a piece of 30 gauge wire and to put it in that via port right there from the top down. And believe me, there's enough space to do this because I did it to my friends on his system. So actually in this area here, I know this is a bad shot. It's one of these guys. I'm pretty sure it's the lowest one, but we're going to be going from the top anyway, so I just wanted to scuff that pad up a little bit. So you take your 30 gauge wire, cut it like a little 6-inch piece. There it is right there. And we're just going to feed this in from the top down. So let's take this guy and we're just going to feed it down. I have to bring it a little closer, guys, so I can see. Okay, and we got it. So if you look on the opposite side, you can see it sticking up. So that's the one there. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a bend over. Okay, you can see it there. We're just going to hit it with some flux. Okay. Now you don't want to stay on this via too long. You just want a little quick touch. And I mean, that should be it. That looks pretty good there. You just need the smallest little touch. Through the via port, I'm giving it a bit of a tug. Okay, so that's our positive, and our negative is that little blob right there. Okay, so we're going to throw this back into the case. We're going to throw the power adapter in the back of the case as well. So we got the board back into the case. We got our wire installed, and that does not touch anything, so you guys don't have to worry about that. let's get our connectors here. And it's got a little nut on the one side, on the inside. Okay. Alright, now we're going to push this through the hole that we made. And it's going to look like that. Just like that. Okay, so we're going to put our nut on the inside. Nice and easy. Okay, if you guys got some pliers or something to tighten it up, that would be great. Got the screw in the board here, so I might as well get that out of the way. Screws that hold it in. Now she's all in there, nothing left to do but to bridge this to the positive and that to the negative. And then we need to make the other side of this happen. So pretty much we're going to be connecting this wire onto this piece that's going to be plugging into there. And there we go. We have both ports in good health. We're not going to have to worry about breaking this, because we're not really going to use that unless we're doing firmware update or updating high scores to Nintendo Age. First, let's find out what's positive. Positive is usually the middle, but since we're making both ends, it doesn't really matter how we wire this up, because it's going to have its own power adapter. So let's say we'll go in the middle. We're on continuity now. We're on continuity now. Okay. So the middle is this one. Okay. And the outside, sorry, the right one is the outside wall. Okay. So we want to hook the positive up to be the middle. Okay. And that's the positive that we ran off there. So the positive is going to have to go on this side, because that's our continuity is on the middle. Okay, so we're just going to solder that lead to there. Get some flux on her. Alright, let's tin them up. Keep bumping into you guys. There we go. Now we're going to take our positive. Okay, and that's nice and strong there, and that's where she's gonna live. Now we have to connect our negative. We got this little guy. Now we just have to attach this to this. That should be pretty simple. Just a little baby jumper. That's nice and strong. Okay, we can actually trim it down a little bit. My leads were pretty long there. Same with this guy, we can trim this down a bit too. Probably about halfway. I'm just gonna loop this guy back around. Hope you guys can see me doing this okay. Kind of a tricky, there we go. There we go. We got her all hooked up, all done and ready. There she is. Not much going on there. Just a simple circuit. Okay, guys. So that's how you wire, that's how you fix an AVS, alright? So let's put the cover back on it. Alright, and hopefully this AVS will give us years of service here. Okay, well, it's actually the next day here, and the reason for it, the reason why I didn't get to finish it off is because I wasn't thinking. The old power supply I was going to use, it came with a very short wire, because I think I used the wire on a different project before. So I needed a longer wire. Now I could have used some maybe 14 gauge speaker wire or something like that, 16 gauge speaker wire, but I said, you know what, screw it. So I'll just grab another one. So I went down to the flea market, picked up a couple of these guys, and you can see the rating on this. Okay, so you want to look in outputs. It says DC 5 volts 1 amp, and it even shows a diagram of where the positive is. So that's showing you this piece here. See that piece? So it's showing you that the middle's positive and the outside is negative. And that's great and all, but we're cutting the end off because the end on this side was way too thin to fit into our power port that we just installed. So you want to test it anyway, okay? And I actually tested it, and it's not that red is positive. On this, it's actually red is negative. So it's a good thing that I tested it. Okay, now you always want to test it, because if you get the polarity backwards, you might screw up the system. So you guys are going to need a multimeter, okay? And so now we're going to solder this bad boy onto here, and then that should be it. That should be done. So we need positive on the inside like we did to the adapter there, and that should be it. So let's break out our helping hands here. Hopefully you got a set. You can do it without them, but it's a bit of a pain in the arse if you don't have a set of these. So you can see how they do come in handy to hold things. Okay, now we got that all focused up, and we're going to take our wire, and these helping hands are absolutely great. Okay, and this actually looks a little long, so I'm going to cut this down. Okay, now one thing you don't want to forget to do before you solder everything is to slide this little protector piece over first. So when you connect it, you can just screw this closed onto the adapter there. So let's just bundle all these together. Nice and clean. We're going to tin our leads here. Actually got a good deal on a original Xbox controller while I was there too. $5. I probably think it needs some repair, but that's okay. Okay, so we're going to tin that bad boy up right there. We can throw some flux on the wire. And now you want the wire to soak up the flux and the solder entirely. Okay. Alright, so see if my handy dandy solderer is ready to go. There we go. So let's just tin these up. You can see how it soaks it up real good. And that's exactly what you want. You want it to soak right through. Anytime you're using a soldering iron, you might want to, crack a window or have a fan going in the background or something. Okay, now we're going to do this side here. Just going to tin the leads up. Okay. Okay. And I find when you blow on the actual solder, when you're laying solder like that, it actually dries it a lot faster. Okay, I'm just gonna bend these over. Okay, kind of like crimped. Okay, and you can see what we got there. And actually, what I can do now, since it's crimped, is I can give it another small hit here. Just to make sure that that doesn't unhook by any way. Right about there. Oh yeah, that's hot. Whew. Okay, got a nice strong connection there. Just check that, see how it looks. Oh yeah, that's not going anywhere. Okay. You can see how this guy is just going to go on top, and it's going to get screwed in all the way. Okay, and there we go. We got a professional looking end here for this wire. Looks like it wasn't even tampered with at all. I probably will put a little dab of hot glue just on the threads so it doesn't move. But yeah, it's a nice fit, and we have a good power supply now. Okay, so before we go ahead and plug this into our AVS system, we're just going to check voltage and make sure that our polarities aren't mixed up or anything. So we want to be around 5 volts. Okay, so 5.5, it looks good, everything looks good. I actually went ahead and took a little bit of super glue, and I just put a little dab of super glue on these threads here so it won't move, it won't come undone. Let's take a look at the finished product. I went and actually put the shell back on the top cover, and so that's how it works. And we just, for power. Okay, so everything looks like it should work. So in theory, I should be able to press the power and we should see some power there, and we do. That's a good sign. I got my EverDrive in there. Okay, so let's hook this up to an HDMI, which I have right here somewhere. Alright, we got our HDMI here. Okay, now this system is superior to some of the clones that are out there. Okay, so we're all hooked up and ready. Let's give her a test run. So I'm going to point the camera at the TV, quick and dirty, and yeah. Alright, so we got it all hooked up. Let's press power on the AVS. And come on, baby. Yeah, there we are. Boom. 720, a true 720p. Now we don't have to worry about that port getting ripped out. Sorry about the shaky camera here, guys. I'm trying to do this with one hand. You can see everything is functioning great. I got the EverDrive in there now. So, okay, it's loading up my EverDrive. Let's go into Nintendo games. Let's load up something good. A little Castlevania. And it should be booting. And there we go. Crystal clear image on this AVS. Okay, guys? Okay, alright, so she's all done. There she is, running Castlevania off a secondary power supply, I guess you would call it, or a secondary power port for the AVS. This is going to definitely prolong the life of your AVS if you're always setting it up and, you know, taking it out and putting it somewhere else and plugging in and out, in and out. Eventually, you know, I see that little port there, that micro USB port, breaking off, and I've already seen it on one of my friends. I've seen it on YouTube in a couple of videos there, and people repairing them. I just thought that, you know, I wanted to show my technique on how to repair this. It's very cheap to do, parts and everything. You know, I bought the power cord used from a flea market for just $1. So, you know, if you guys can source those things at Value Village, just make sure it says 5 volts, 1000 milliamps, or somewhere really close to that. Like, I wouldn't go plug 7 or 8 volts into it, that's for sure. Make sure your polarities aren't mixed up, and it should work fine, just like mine turned out here. It actually looks amazing in real life. You see some artifacting going on the taking an image from the TV, but in real life it's crystal clear. Okay, so hopefully this video helps a few of you there for a nice easy method. As long as you use 30 gauge wire, it will fit in that via port. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please give a thumbs up if you liked the video. You can always give a thumbs down if you hate everything about life. To anyone who watching this video and you never seen any of my other content, you can take a look at my channel. Please press the subscription button to subscribe to my channel. You'll be alerted of any new videos. To my regular subs, where have I been? A little bit MIA, I guess you can say it. I've been fooling around with original Xboxes and getting programming done on that kind of stuff, so I've been busy. Don't worry, guys. I'm still here and not going anywhere, okay? Alright, so do me a favor, smash that sub button, give me a like for the video, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one. This is Retro Pro Frank, and I'm out. Guys, thanks for watching the video. If you guys like this video, go ahead and press the like button below, and you guys can leave some comments below in the comments section of the video. Please share this video on Facebook pages to your friends and family, as well as if you guys like this video, please subscribe. This is Retro Pro Frank. Thanks for watching. I'm out.